So, a little bit long today. That's cool. It's been a good stream, been a fun stream. People supporting and all that. I've got a little bit of story time for you, and it's something that is very catastrophic and horrible that happened in my life. So, you see in the stream panels, there's top contributors. So we have like Black Sword's third place Tabaxian, and then Kuukyo at the top with 15,000. And some of the early viewers may remember him. He was on stream some of the time. I lived with Kuukyo for about 5 years. That's his internet handle, not his real name, obviously. And because of him kind of rooming with me after university, when I was still trying to figure out, do I want to work in cognitive science? Do I want to apply for PhD programs? Do I want to join the Peace Corps? He was like my bro. He was my best friend at the time, and he let me stay at his place until I kind of figured out what I was going to do. So when we were living together, we talked a lot about brain science, about decision making, about gaming, and Athene had just started to make videos on poker. Like, it's his style of being very over the top and silly about like him using his pro gamer skill with WoW and applying that toward poker and being pretty successful. So he was playing online poker primarily, but he went in and did some like live tournament stuff as well. And it kind of made me think, like, if someone's good at games, poker is a game, people play poker for real money, and humans have a lot of errors in their decision making. What if I do poker? And Kuukyo knew a lot about poker, a lot more than I did. He had played poker at live tables, and he knew me really well as a person. We had lots of long conversations and stuff. So he was like, well, what if I just gave you a poker bankroll and allowed you to learn poker and train poker and study it full time? And I was like, that seems amazing, like an awesome opportunity. It's like, well, poker and online poker is illegal in the US, so what if we move to Canada? So we moved to Vancouver, Canada together. And we drove there. There are a lot of videos on my Facebook page of the drive up. I might end up compiling them into a video at some point, but we took the route directly west all the way over to California and then all the way up north to Vancouver. And we rented a basement suite and we lived there for 6 months, which is as long as Americans can stay in Canada without getting like a visa or something for an extended stay. Just by being American, you can be in Canada for 6 months at a time. So we stayed there for 6 months and I just got to do poker full on, full time, which was awesome. I played StarCraft kind of as one of my side games at the time, but it wasn't my primary. I was just trying to get good at online poker. And Kuukyo was working. He was paying the rent. Like, if you're working from zero with poker, I just had a bankroll for online play. It was probably like $200 at the time, but it's nowhere near a livable wage. It was purely for me to understand the mechanics of how the game works and to practice at a bankroll where it wouldn't really put us in any financial risk. I wasn't earning anything, but I also wasn't putting us in debt. It was kind of like just a really small amount of money to be able to learn the game. And I would say for anyone looking to like dive into poker, getting an online poker at the very lowest possible stakes, it's called micro stakes, would be the way to go. So I got to do that, and then we moved to Washington and I continued to play poker. And we moved back to Texas and I continued to play poker, and I clicked Masters in StarCraft way sooner than I thought I would. So I was kind of thinking, well, if we're in the US and poker isn't technically legal here to play, I would like to stream. And I feel like the mentality material that I learned when I was studying poker in Canada could be applied to esports. Because I've told the stream this many times, like seeing Idra lose games that he had already won just purely based on his bad mindset was like, these people need help. Like, esports is a bunch of whiny children, even at the highest level in a lot of cases. There isn't the same like section of literature if you're looking, hey, I want to get good at StarCraft, what do I need to do? You've got builds, you've got strategies, but there's not the same understanding of like mindset. So he's like, all right, I'll let you do that. So I got to start a stream with StarCraft and try to get GM, and he's paying all of my rent this whole time. So we can kind of see the theme of Kuukyo was a person in my life who was a really good friend to me, and we had a really positive relationship, and he gave me the opportunity to make $0 per year for multiple years to be able to have this stream. So this is kind of leading into the bad news, which is he passed on Thursday of last week. He took his life. He had been struggling with depression for over a decade, and he had a bunch of other risk factors like drinking a lot of alcohol, and being male is also a risk factor. So kind of remembering that anytime you see anyone who has streamed, it usually takes a long time for them to build it up, and it requires a lot of help from people. And he was the biggest factor that allowed me to even have the idea to do this in the first place. So I'll be taking Wednesday of next week off to go to the memorial for him and his family and stuff. But yeah, a lot of the way that I speak, how I talk about stuff in the channel and stuff, it's like what I've learned from him. So rest in peace, Kuukyo. He was a really amazing guy. He was very much like an older brother to me. I have a biological brother, and I went to university before him and stuff, but I met Kuukyo when he was a couple years ahead of me in university. He's older, and he was a really big factor in me moving away from Christianity. We had a lot of long conversations about my beliefs and why I believed in Christianity, why I thought that the Bible was true and stuff. And he was the type of person who set a really good example by, whenever he would talk to anyone, he would listen to everything they had to say and try and be able to return that to them in a way that they would say, wow, you really get me. Like, I wish I would have thought of it that way. And that's one thing that is really missing in a lot of discussion between people, is a lot of people enter into a discussion with their mind already made up, and they think they're right, and they think the other person is wrong. And they're ready to basically lob their pre-planned arguments at them and not listen to them and just hope that their superior position will just win over time. But he was the type of person who would really want to get to the core of what you cared about and would want to try and help you in some way. So he was a very sort of selfless, helpful person, you could say. So I would say, to kind of make the most of what he brought, just kind of understanding any projects that you have that you would like to make some progress on, like do what you can. Be really thankful of the people in your life who have given things to you for free without asking for anything. And try and be a good listener when you talk with people. Like, it's not all about you. Sometimes you're wrong about stuff. So having an attitude of openness to hear what they have to say. But yeah, he was a good guy. Pact got me a book from the library that kind of talks about suicide and depression and stuff like that. So I feel like I'm a little bit more knowledgeable now about what can lead up to it and what type of support people need. Depression is something that brain science is still trying to figure out. Like, we don't have bulletproof solutions to, you have depression, all right, you go into the doctor and they fix it. It's more of something that you have to manage over time, and it is a mental illness. So you wouldn't think of someone with depression as someone who is inherently bad. Like, they don't choose to have depression. They don't choose to have that low energy, sometimes that self-loathing, that lack of motivation. It is sort of like a plague of the mind. So reaching out when you can, trying to check in with people, see how they're feeling, trying to pick them up where you're able to do that. So yeah, try and look out for each other. Be compassionate. Maybe not telling people to kill themselves, just for the awareness of people who actually do think about that sometimes, and how if you can keep people more on the positive end of the spectrum, they're less likely to kind of fall into that spiral. But he was a very rational man, and even rational people can take irrational actions. The kind of crisis moment is a very irrational state. A lot of times you'll have multiple risk factors that kind of combine. You have alcohol potentially, if there's lethal means like gun or knife or pills or something like that. You have anxiety, you have panic, you have depression, you have maleness, a bunch of different things kind of coming together. Even someone who you perceive to be really good, really intelligent, really trustworthy, like I trust him as a person, he's amazing, really bad things can still happen. So kind of respecting the dangers of depression and suicide, and trying to confront the problem seriously in ways that you can, is probably the best route to take. But yeah, it's hard to talk about it. It's still very fresh on my mind. And it wasn't the way that I would like to see him go. There was a lot of stuff that he could have still brought to the world, but life is shorter than we would like, and we can't really choose when people are taken away from us. So let's see. Let's see if we can host somebody.